Welcome back to another episode of the Briefcase in the Bar, in episode 34. Thanks for being here.
Is it actually only 34?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Tomorrow we're uploading 33. I started recording on Tuesdays now, not Thursdays anymore.
Yeah, so we're a couple days early.
So the editors have 2 days.
More to...
Yeah, get it going. Show sponsor is Julius Meljars. How was your event last night?
Yeah, we had our first time homebuyer event. Very well attended, I thought, for first time I've ever done something like that. And we basically just went through the process of buying a house, what that looks like, what the expectations are, how it should look, what the steps should be. The first step being call a mortgage broker, figure out what you can actually afford to buy, rather than a lot of people call up their realtor like, oh, I like this place. I like this. Yeah, I like it too. Guess what? You can't afford it.
Doesn't every realtor just tell their client, hey, go get pre-approved first?
No, because it would be, if you had somebody, let's just say you're Julius and you're 20 some years old and some 45-year-old guy calls you with his wife and says, hey, I want to go look at this house and it's $1 million place. And, you're just pumped to maybe go show him the place. Like, you're excited to go potentially do a deal and work hard and help them find something. Well, you're not going to necessarily be blunt and say, hey, can you afford this place? Like that would just be awkward.
Say, how much are you pre-approved for?
Yeah. Well, that's why you're not a realtor. That's why you're a coach. You're good at asking questions.
But, get to the root of the issue.
Yeah. Anyways, it was a good event, and it was like I say, I think it's a great thing for both of us. We really enjoyed it, and we had a mortgage broker there, John Mackey, great guy. He
supports Cascade, right?
Yes, he does. Yeah, he does. He doesn't. His kids don't go there though. They go to High Road, but he does sponsor our golf tournament and stuff. So yeah, he gave kind of the Coles notes on what would be expected in order to get a mortgage. And I think even just the process of like the basic steps of like, how you put an offer in, the fact that you have subjects. If you're 18 or 19 and you're saving up money for a house, you might not know how that looks and how that process, and depending on the market, the process changes. So we talked about that at length. And I talked there about doing, it was really interesting. It was kind of like a offhanded comment about like doing the same type of night, but doing an investment night where I would talk about like different types of investments, investing in the stock market, TSFAs, registered accounts, that type of thing, and maybe just talk even about companies that I've invested in. There seemed to be a lot of interest in that. So mostly I think it's just Canadian Reform boys that are really hungry and want free food on Monday nights. They're like, let's meet next week.
And let's figure out how to get more money.
How can I make
Put
more
an event
money?
on how to be a better dad. How many people show up?
Nobody.
Why?
Oh, because it feels so overwhelming. Plus, like, if I put the event on, they'd take one look at me. Hypocrite. Not going to take advice from this guy. So, yeah. No, it was interesting. There was mostly young people. There's a few older guys and just a mixed bag, but it was good. And I thought that was a good event. That was busy. And then the night before was our church AGM.
Yeah.
It was interesting too. I was curious to know how you felt about. Have you been to church AGM before?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
There's like a members meeting. It was funny. I was wearing a hat and I was sitting beside my buddy Chris, and he goes, "You're wearing a hat to an event like this?" And I'm like, I told him, I was like, "What do you mean? Like, why are the women here?" Because growing up, of course, it was men only allowed at the members meetings.
Oh, and he grew up in the same type of circles as me.
Yeah. But I thought what was more interesting was the sermon on Sunday. So go to the same church for anyone who's listening, where we're doing leading up to Lent. We're doing a sermon series leading up to Lent, just like they do usually a series leading up to Christmas. Lent being like Easter and Good Friday. And so you had a note in here on the podcast notes. I'll just read what you wrote here. Seeing as we're supposed to be practicing a Lent, I thought we could cut the podcast very short and hopefully make it humble. What the heck does that mean? Neither you or I are humble, so we'll see how that goes.
Well, it's just the idea of like, so we just finished the 7 Deadly Sins book, and that's essentially what, for lack of a better word, this is what the sermon series is on. It was a great sermon on Sunday. Yeah. But Pastor Matt's calling it Vice of Virtue, which, I mean, we also alluded to, the book alludes to, that we wrote, talked a lot about like the opposite of obviously the area that could be sin. And he called them capital sins or capital vices, where it's like, all other sin could kind of stem from those types of things, which I thought was interesting. But basically this week was pride, which is the first chapter of the book that we had read a couple months ago. And the opposite of that was, I think he quoted the C.S. Lewis quote, which is a pretty famous quote, but being humble is not thinking less of yourself. It's just thinking about yourself less. And I think that the point of the sermon was or the point that I got out of it, and that's why I put that note on there. That was on Sunday night. I put that on there because I was just thinking about the areas this week. Like, it's a bad week because like I was chairing the AGM on Sunday night, and And the whole point of the sermon was just don't be in the limelight. Don't post those selfie or whatever. Like,
the challenge
don't
was
be on the podcast. Like, just
don't deflect from yourself.
Give God the glory.
Give God glory,
totally.
or other people,
and just be humble, right? So, and not false humility. Anyway, it's a great sermon. I mean, there's a lot of people that would do well to listen to that. I think it was a good word.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyways, so that was the AGM, and you didn't have other thoughts that stood out from it.
No, I thought it was a good update. I mean, I thought it was the coolest was, so they did ministry highlights, some of their ministries in the church that are happening.
Pretty cool.
And there was one couple that came up and shared their testimony where they were separated 3 years ago, roughly. And were in a tough spot in their marriage, so ended up going to a church. These people were not Christians at all.
Still didn't totally understand how they ended up at our church, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, someone invited them. And so they got connected with the pastor and started going to church, and ended up becoming Christians. And then had to get baptized and had to get married. They weren't sure what to do first. Ended up getting baptized, and 3 weeks later they got married. And now they're teaching their kids about Jesus and the gospel. And I don't know a ton of stories of people, or couples coming from no church background at all, and coming to the church for help in a crisis, and then ended up coming to faith in Christ. And there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, I was pretty emotional listening to those stories, and even the ministry that the Agassiz campus, Harrison campus doing at Seabird. It's like super. It's just interesting because it's true reconciliation, right?
Yeah.
It's
so what they're doing there
and,
in the Lake Erie campus is they're putting on a meal every Monday night for the local band there, and just loving on them, no agenda, and it's really making a big impact in that community, and so it's awesome. Okay, got a lot of things to cover today. We'll start with Gentle and Lowly. We are on chapter 5, going through this book, Gentle and Lowly, the Heart of Christ for Sinners and Sufferers. This chapter is titled, He Can Deal Gently, coming from Hebrews 5, verse 2, which says, He can deal gently with the ignorant and the wayward. Would you like the chapter?
That would be me.
Yeah, which one, ignorant or wayward?
Both.
Okay. So the idea here in chapter 5, verse 2 is that Jesus does not throw his hands up in the air when he engages sinners. He is calm, tender, soothing, restrained, and he deals with us gently. And so I'll read a little piece here on that, and we can discuss it after that. With whom does he deal gently? Those of reasonable and moderate failure, surely reserving a harsher response for the bigger sinners. A careful reading of the text does not allow us to conclude this. He can deal gently with the ignorant and wayward. The ignorant and wayward are two kinds of milder sinners, cornered off from the major sinners. No, this is the writer's way of including everyone. In the Old Testament, I remember how richly and pervasively built out of the Old Testament this letter of Hebrews is. We find that there were basically two kinds of sins, unwillful and willful, or accidental and deliberate. Or as Numbers 15 puts it, unintentional and with a high hand. This is almost certainly what the writer of the Hebrews had in mind, with the ignorant referring to the accidental sins and wayward referring to the deliberate sins. In other words, when Hebrews 5 verse 2 says that Jesus can deal gently with the ignorant and the wayward, the point is that Jesus deals gently and only gently with all sinners who come to him, irrespective of their particular offense, and just how heinous it is. Which elicits tenderness from Jesus. It is not the severity of the sin, but whether the sinner comes to him. Whatever our offense, he deals gently with us. But then it says this part, which I think is really big. If we never come to him, we will experience a judgment so fierce, it will be like a double-edged sword coming out of his mouth at us. If we do come to him, as fierce as his lion-like judgment would have been against us, so deep will his lamb-like tenderness for us. We will be enveloped in one or the other. To no one will Jesus be neutral. He doesn't handle us roughly. He doesn't scowl and scold. He doesn't lash out, and the way many of our parents did. And all this restraint on his part is not because of his deluded view of our sinfulness. He knows our sinfulness far more deeply than we do. And I think it's awesome because I think we do have this idea very quickly of thinking it's the severity of our sin. Or there's scales of sin, but it's actually not that. It's, are we coming to him or not? If we're not coming to him, yes, we will experience his judgment. If we do go to him, we will experience his tender, loving care. And he will accept us. So why is it that we think otherwise? Or
because it's that part that I told you before about the last part of the chapter where it's like the idea of us just looking through our own human perspective, right? I can't quote exactly what it said, but it was just this idea that, yeah, we none of us, obviously we're humans, but we just don't view God clearly, right? We don't, and I mean, we have our frame of reference of how for so many years we're taught doctrine, and wrongly or rightly, probably mostly rightly, I would think, but like a lot of things maybe are not, that the skew is not completely correct. And then once that's deeply ingrained in you, you take that as truth because that's what you were taught. And it's interesting. So he quotes quite a bit from Hebrews, right? And like, I just haven't read, I mean, I've read Hebrews, but I haven't read Hebrews a lot. And like, he talks in there, I had it underlined in my book. I forgot my book at home, but it was like, there's a guy that spent like 30 years writing, and I forget who it was.
John Owen
wrote like,
on this verse,
on this chapter, on the book of Hebrews, like, I'd probably be an interesting read, but just meditated on it. Right. And, so I just found
it's actually interesting on the meditating thing. I think in our culture, we're always busy. We're always having information thrown at us. And one of the things that the earlier Christians did a lot was meditating, just having quiet time. They read a piece of the Bible or something else, and they would just sit with that. They wouldn't like go on to the next thing right away, but just like, meditate on what and think about it and what it means. And I think that's good. But yeah, that last piece that you mentioned there, it says this: look to Christ. He deals gently with you. It's the only way he knows how to be. He is the high priest to end all high priests. As long as you fix your attention on your sin, you will fail to see how you can be safe. But as long as you look to the high priest, you will fail to see how you can be in danger. Looking inside ourselves, we can anticipate only harshness from heaven. Looking out to Christ, we can anticipate only gentleness.
Yeah, it's a good word. I'd add on that.
So, yeah, that's...
Hey, random question for you. Do you think I interrupt you a lot on this podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. My mom gave me a big lecture yesterday.
She said that?
Yeah, I said, it's Kyle. It doesn't matter. No, it matters. He has feelings too.
I don't
like barely.
It's just
like, who cares? No. She was very concerned how rude I am.
I don't care. I'm used to it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll try to be a little less interrupting, but
just gotta listen first.
Listen first.
You're excited to share often though. So
anyways, I thought it was funny.
I think it's fun that your mom. Funny that
anytime
mom
now I go to my mom's to try to tell her something, right? She's like, "No, I already heard that in the podcast. Need new information." I'm like, "Okay, this is bad."
Okay.
I wonder if she didn't call me to hang out anymore.
Got a few things to talk about here. We're gonna respond to a few reels. First, I want to talk about article in the National Post that was published last week. The Liberals, the federal Liberals, that'd be like the Democratic Party if you're in the States, want to nearly double the funding for CBC, which is the national broadcasting. And they do it as an investment in national security. So if you're American, that'd be like Democrats wanting to doubling the funding for CNN or MSNBC.
NPR would probably be more accurate.
National Public Radio. Man, I was just like, what is going on? Like, I hope Polyev, the new guy, gets in and defunds the CBC.
Really fascinating from and there again, I don't agree with the polls, but I mean, polls I think make fools out of people. But like, I remember in some past provincial elections where the polls were so wrong, like when Christy Clark ended up getting a majority in BC. And it's funny because somebody else wrote an article recently, and I think it's in the National. No, it was just on Twitter. I seen it where somebody beaked off about, if Christy Clark had won, she would have cleaned the floor. Like somebody had just watched they had a leaders debate because they've already kicked out the two minority people, right? Like, and I've drawn a blank on the name now, but but anyways, it was just interesting how people thought, Christy Clark would clean house, and I think she would have. I think she would have stood up really well against Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland. You hardly hear anything about her, but there again, it's. I mean, I hate to exacerbate the idea of the media having their favorite person, but Mark Carney is for sure like the favored person. So now the polls are saying, Mark Carney's going to beat Pierre Poilievre, and maybe he will. I have no idea. I would find that highly unlikely. Is there going to be a March election? Highly unlikely. No, I think they'll stall it as long as they can. I think that as long as the federal Liberal Party can keep. Well,
Jagmeet has his pension now.
Yeah, so he's good. So he won't necessarily prop up the government anymore.
I don't know if that was actually his actual reason for doing it or not. But And what do you think about the government funding?
I don't agree with any money going to the CBC. And people would argue they would argue that, it's good to have Canadian content. We wouldn't have any Canadian content. No, good Canadian content will prevail if it's good content.
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever.
Let the product
I
stand
believe
for
in the
itself.
free market. Yeah, I don't.
Except
in
for
dairy.
milk.
Except in dairy. Except in dairy, we need to be, and we really need to be protected now. This is going to come out a week after all this, so it'll be fascinating to see what happens.
March 4th.
This is March 4th. We're talking. It'll be fascinating to see what transpires. Today, all the tariffs came in, and it is bizarre what is happening in my world. I went from probably talking on this podcast about getting trucks for almost for free from certain areas in the US, trucking hay, to now, the last 3 weeks, I haven't been able to get a truck from anywhere for any amount of money because of all the product that has been trying to get crammed across these borders before the deadline. I called 2 truck companies yesterday and had a heart-to-heart with dispatch, and I'm like, why am I not getting it? I'm not even getting a phone call. I can't. Even if I call you, say they don't have anything.
Yeah.
And we have trucks running nonstop. There's 100 loads for every one truck. And that will probably instantly change over the next few days as the reality of the tariffs start to kick in.
Yeah.
And so Trump basically invoked 25% tariff on anything coming across except oil and gas. He put it 10%. So to me, it will be very inflationary. That I talked to a U.S. dairy farmer last night who I buy cattle from, and those people are not happy. They're getting calls from their brokers saying, hey, any GSPs, any canola, any product that
what
they're
will
buying.
it do to the exchange rate between the U.S. and Canadian dollar?
Right now, it's our Canadian peso is just getting whacked.
22-year low, I think.
Yeah, I think that.
But will it get worse even now because of the tariffs?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, right now the stock market's cratering. Yesterday was a bloodbath. Today's a bloodbath. I think that a lot of that is it's fear-based, and people panic and people turn to cash or whatever when they're scared. And the U.S. dollar typically does really well when things are going poorly, right? So yeah, I wouldn't know how that will play out. I just feel like in my world, I keep saying it. People always say, "Oh, how do you think?" Trade wars are bad for everybody. It will be bad. A lot of people argue. I know people that are listening to this that disagree with this and think, "Oh, it's pro-America," and to some degree that will happen. But overall, there's a reason that all countries capitulate when you do a free trade agreement. All countries leave something on the table typically because they know that free trade between countries is ultimately good for both economies, right? And so now the idea, and to be honest, I follow politics and you follow it pretty closely too. I don't totally understand the trade war with Canada.
No, I don't either.
A little more with China because the amount of product that gets made in China, cheap product with cheap labor,
Same with Mexico.
Same with Mexico. I can kind of see that. It's okay, let's bring back some of these manufacturing jobs. But the idea of like I say, even just the idea, the amount of heavy oil. And I saw Doug Ford, the premier of Ontario, the other day beacon off about turning the power. I thought it should happen even just temporarily for a couple hours, just zero electricity crossing, right? And we could do it with oil too. I read an article the other day.
Yeah.
We could literally just.
But then you would need a real strong leader.
Well, because it will be very, very bad for us too if you do that. That's why I'm saying this whole trade thing, the flow of goods back and forth across this imaginary line in the dirt between two countries, that needs to keep happening.
So this Saturday is the local Conservative Party's annual general meeting.
Okay.
And so they need 30 directors for the board. Put my name forward.
Okay.
To go on the board. And so I can start my slow process.
For the federal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can start my process.
Slow rise to becoming the Prime Minister of Canada one day.
Yeah. Or maybe it won't be that slow. We'll see.
Well, I can tell you that if you keep doing this podcast with me, neither of us are getting elected to anything. That I know for sure.
Oh, we'll see. The only way I'm doing it is being real. So no bullshit.
Okay.
Anyways, let's watch some reels and react to them. I got a bunch of them. So
we can't watch too many because we're going to keep this short. This is going to be a humble episode. Remember?
Humility is amount of time. We're watching reels about other people.
Okay. Happy to watch them.
Here we go.
Crazy.
What sticks out most to me in that piece is that the first 4 years after he was a Christian, he was saved, he was forgiven, he was going to heaven. He didn't make any progress in his faith life because he neglected the reading of the word, which I think is wildly common among Christians, believing Christians, that they neglect the Bible. They just barely read it. And the word is God, right? John, first chapter of John, it says that. And I think it's just a beautiful encouragement to stay in the word. There's no other better place to be. There's a lot of good podcasts, a lot of good books, a lot of good, people to go see and stuff like that. And the devil's always trying to distract us and say, no, like you gotta, I often have it. I come in here to read my Bible, and for some reason I go to the computer first and answer one email. All of a sudden you're like half hour, and all your day gets away from you. Yeah. It's like, no, make it a habit. Stay in your word. There's nothing that will change you more. And it comes up a lot. Like that interview with Mike Shooten.
Yeah.
I pushed him. I challenged him. It's like, how did you respond this way when it comes to the passing of your son Marcus and other areas? He goes, that was in the word.
That was a great interview.
Yeah.
Enjoyed that. Yeah, it's interesting because my trajectory is the same. And I was thinking about it the other day, because often when you lead things like freedom sessions or you're leading in ministry, you see people that are really struggling, and, they've been in the church their whole life. And then, like, even if I look at my church, people often ask me, like, oh, when did things change for you? Well, they didn't change right away. And I didn't do a lot of the right things early on. And I lived arguably like a really awful life and did a lot of the wrong things when I was Christian. And I think that, God was really gracious. That's really what stood out to me. How gracious he is. But also just, like when I got serious and I had people challenge me, it's like, okay, get in the word. And I mean, that's where I struggle, and I have struggled, because even just my reading is nothing like the dedication of some guys. But I do find, like, even a thing like a podcast or listening to sermons, or like, there's just a lot of good things that you can do that are, maybe a bit easier to do than, like, because you really got to be paying attention, reading the word, if you're going to take any of it in, right? And it's not about the amount. It's not about so many chapters a day or any of that, right? Like, I think if everyone has 15 minutes, like, set the timer for 15 minutes. And even if you have to read the same chapter 5 times over, and it's a skill, right? It's also, reading is also a skill. Like, you can get better at it. I think, and don't skip Leviticus. That's what he was saying. I mean, that's a tough one. I'll be honest. That would not be my go-to place to.
Yeah. That's why I like that 1 year Bible reading plan I have, because it gives you one Old Testament piece, one New Testament piece, a Psalm and a Proverb. So, you're able to keep going. So anyways, on to the next reel.
If I wanted to be really, really stressed and really, really anxious, how should I live?
Get on your phone, make sure it's on high brightness, and scroll through every social media platform, every news platform, watch graphic content of videos of horrible, terrible
7 weeks
things
into the
happening
new
in
year,
the world.
how
At
you
midnight.
doing
Keep
with
doing
your
that
resolve
off
to
and
read
on
the Bible
until
this year?
4, 5
And I want to
a.m.
encourage
Make
you
sure
to
that
pick
you
it up
check
and
your phone
press
right
on.
away, right
George
when you get
Mueller,
up out of bed.
his whole
and
life was a
continue
testimony
scrolling.
to
No
what reading the
movement
Bible in
whatsoever.
its
Stay in bed
entirety,
or
severe
sit
parts
as sedentary
and
as you
kind
can.
parts,
Skimp on your
do
sleep as much
in
as
the
you can in every
preservation
possible
of
way.
faith
Sleep late,
and the
keep waking up
deepening and
throughout the night.
empowering of
Make sure
faith
that you get
is
as
what he
little
wrote
sleep as
when he was
possible for
71.
as long as possible.
For the
Don't
first 4 years
spend
after
time
my
with anyone.
conversion
Stay on
at
your
age
phone
20,
day
I
and night,
made
day and
no
night, day and night.
progress
If you're on
because
your
I
phone, great, but
neglected
if you
the
have a
Bible.
TV on,
But
make
when
sure it's
I
on in your
regularly
bedroom,
read
too, on full volume
through the
all night
whole,
long.
and I'm going to stick in,
Yes, it will.
not skipping the severe parts.
It is fascinating.
When I
how,
regularly read on through the
a
whole
lot of
with
people that do
reference to
struggle,
my own
there's
heart
definitely
and
a great
soul,
correlation
I
between
directly
people that
made
struggle with
progress. Then
anxiety,
my peace and
that
joy
struggle with
continued
mental health
more
issues.
and more. Now I have
to
been
the
doing
degree
this
that they're
for 47
active,
years.
spend time with
I
people
have read
in
through the
person.
whole Bible about
Spend time on a
100
device,
times,
staring at a device,
and
being
I
indoctrinated
always
by
find
whatever
it fresh
their
when I
algorithm is
begin
spitting out
again.
every day.
Thus, my peace
That's
and
very
joy
good. It's a great
have
book. I've
increased
sent that to
more and more.
Are any of those
That
things
was
on
when
there
he
that
was
you showed?
71. He lived 21
the biggest
more
piece, and it was
years.
convicted
And
with
A.T.
Mike.
Pearson,
Mike
who wrote
had
his
never owned their house
biography,
with no
said
phones
that
in
when
the
he
rooms.
was finished, he had
I
read the
often
Bible
think
from
that
end to
it's complicated because I
end,
literally have a
200
farm out in
times,
Abbotsford
which
where I'm
means
the guy in
between
charge.
71
Like,
and
people do call in the middle of the night. This was an
92, he
emergency,
picked
so
up his
like I do
pace
struggle with that. But I think that would be the biggest healthy thing I could do would be to just like not look at a phone, not look at a screen right before you go to bed, and not look at a screen right first thing in the morning. And often on the weekends, in the last few weeks, I've just left phone downstairs on Saturday night, and it's just healthy.
Yeah, it is awesome. I noticed that did it again last month a couple of times. I put the TV remote in the lockbox for 11 days because as long as it'll go. And the kids are way more calm and happier and present. And it's just way better. So, okay, one more.
Did you just say Canadian capital gains is 66%?
It's 66% now. They just passed that.
2/3. So if you
50%.
make
So it really makes no
$100,000, your government takes 66,000.
Basically, yeah.
I can't breathe.
I can't either. So that's the problem is there's no point really selling them if we're not going to gain a lot of money back. But
No, it's kind of like you're giving it all to the government. It's a
Basically,
disincentive to sell. Cue the make fun of Canada jokes. Okay, but wow. Ouch. I'm sorry, man. That changes everything.
It's actually not as bad as that. Not as bad as that.
It's not 66%?
It's not 66% of the full gain. I'm 99% sure, and there's definitely people that listen to this that know this, but I think it's 66% of half.
Okay. Either way.
It's a lot.
I think in the U.S. it's 25%.
Okay.
Capital gains tax. Okay. You sell something. Yeah, anyways, taxes.
Okay. Maybe it is. I'll have to look into that. I've had a lot of capital gains. So the other thing we have in Canada, which the guy didn't talk about, is we do have an exemption. And I think we have an exemption.
The first million, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people use their exemption, and it is fascinating though, because we own dairy quota and we own other assets. And it's like, you always think, oh, should I sell some? And it always factors into your decision. And it definitely keeps people just like it's a hold up in business. I think taxes in general are just not great for an economy. Right. So, and now that rule is not happening. Like that the most humorous part about this is that never actually passed Parliament. And now
they're going to wait till the Liberals get back in again before they would pass it.
It's just not going to get passed. I don't think the Conservatives are going to pass that. So it's
Conservatives definitely won't. But.
No. So I'm just saying it's fascinating that people literally made huge business plans and sold stuff based on that rule that the Liberals said because it was at 50 and then they upped it to 60, right? Yeah. They gave a date. They normally never give a date on those things. That's the other interesting thing. Yeah. Typically, they would announce it as of that day so people couldn't, dodge the tax pull. Yeah. So.
Okay, last thing. I seen something on Instagram this week that said, I die for my family. That's what a lot of people say, right? I die for my family. Then it challenged and it said, would you lift 3 times a week? Would you eat a nutritious, dense diet? Would you fix your sleep habits for your family? Would you walk 10,000 steps a day? Would you stop drinking so much alcohol? Would you start reading your Bible? Would you stop working so much? Would you deal with your anger issues? Would you love your wife? And I just thought it was awesome because it's very pointed and convicting. It's like we say these things like, I die for my family, I do all these things for my family, but then we don't.
Can't do the little things.
Can't do the little things.
It's because the little things aren't that little, right?
That's right.
To be honest, I mean, the hardest thing to do is the right little thing every day, day in and day out. And that's what's amazing about people that do. That's why people like that do the right things all the time. The little things are special people.
Or even just hard. I mean, I think when we think about these things, it's just like, oh, how am I supposed to do this for the next year or 2 years or whatever? Like,
just do it one day at a time.
Don't worry about that. Just take it one at a time. Call the counselor. Make a call. Start doing the small things, and consistently doing them, and you'll actually make a difference. So, anyways, we are done. Thanks for listening. We're gonna head into overtime, maybe.
No,
I'd love to do an arm wrestle.
Yeah,
we'll put that on the Patreon. Only if you wanna.
I think I would lose. If I had to guess, I'd lose. Be a toss-up, maybe. You think you'd... No, you're pretty crazy. I think you'd win. Dude, it's a mental thing, eh? Winning is a mental thing. Like winning an arm wrestle is probably 80-90% mental.
It's like I type all day. Like I'm not.
You're pretty tough. I remember the last time we had a run. You and Julius and I went for a run one night in the dark down our road, and I just got destroyed by you two.
Okay, but running is... I don't run with my arms. I run with my legs. Okay. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys.
Have a great week.
Yes, peace.